As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. The indictment alleges that they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign. They stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate. And at the same time, as the grand jury alleged in a separate indictment, a private Russian entity engaged in a social media operation. As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, the order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting attorney general apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the order appointing me special counsel
Okay, we're live. Ben loves this song. All right, everybody, your Ben Joravsky show for Wednesday, May 29th is moments away. But before we get into that, we would like to thank the following unions for jumping on board and bringing back the Ben Joravsky show. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Big thank you to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky show. And, of course, today's program is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Wednesday, May 29th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, legendary Chicago journalist Monroe Anderson returns. We welcome back our good friend and host of Humanity in the Headlines, Atiba Buchanan. And it's the return of our favorite grassroots organizer, the one, the only, Amisha Patel. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist. That was a lot of words there.
There's a lot going on in that headline, as you shall see. For the last few weeks, folks, I've been on a search for a Republican, any Republican, who would apply the same principles to themselves as they apply to others. For instance, if you think it would be wrong for a foreign country to interfere into a presidential election to benefit a Democrat over a Republican, and man, if that had happened, could you imagine the howl coming from Republicans right now? Anyway, if you think that would be wrong for Russians to do that to benefit a Republican, then you should say the same thing if they do it to benefit a Republican. Like, to pick one example, Putin having his hackers hacking the Democratic computers to help Trump beat Clinton. But so far, there are hardly any to be found. They're so afraid of getting criticized by Donald Trump in a tweet that they're hiding under the table, D.
Stay under there.
Hey, come on.
Hey.
I'm scared.
Get out from under there.
I'm really scared. Oh, I'll let them hide. I'm really, really scared. They're so scared. All right. Got to give credit to Justin Amash, the Republican congressman from Michigan. Got to give him credit. Okay? He spoke out against Trump, said he should be impeached. Good for him. And now I found another one. Yep, absolutely. In today's tribunal, Christian Schneider. I'll get to that later. He wrote a column about corporate handouts to rich people. Now, let me explain the traditional attitude as it breaks down on this issue. When it comes to handouts, Republicans, conservatives, and libertarians have what I would call a double standard. When poor people get assistance from the government, it's waste, and they should pull themselves up by their bootstraps, like I did, even if they were born rich. They somehow in their mind view themselves as having pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. But when it comes to a handout to a corporation, like let's just say the city of Chicago giving $2.3 billion in property taxes to Sterling Bay to build Lincoln Yards, well, that's economic development. Got that, folks? A handout to people who really need it is bad. A handout to rich people who don't need it is good. Up is down and down is up when it comes to Republicans. You know, if might make more sense if we were all stoned on reefer, but Republicans are against that too. Gambling good, reefer bad. Gambling good, reefer bad. That's the world according to the Republicans. Anyway, great articles I said in today's tribunal. Here it is, folks. Home delivered.
See that, listeners?
I'm subsidizing the Tribune. Even though most of the stuff they write in their editorial page is utter garbage, I still subsidize them. Anyway, the Chicago Tribune printed an article by Christian Schneider, who is a reporter in Wisconsin of the conservative persuasion, but I got to give Christian a handout. He points out the obvious, that the cheeseheads up in Wisconsin are wasting billions when they decided to dole out all that money to Foxconn to come build a manufacturing facility in southern Wisconsin. That's more trouble than it's worth. You could read it for yourself in Christian Schneider's column in the Tribune. There, I'm giving you a shout-out, Tribune. He points out all the obvious points, is that it probably won't create as many jobs as is promised. If it does come, it'll probably pollute the area, and it's going to cost them a lot of money that could otherwise be spent on things that people want, like, I don't know, better roads or bridges or police or education, et cetera, and so forth. Anyway, I would like to congratulate Christian Schneider. It's good to know that there's at least one conservative who's not hiding under the table. Come on out, boys. I'm scared. I'm so scared. All right. We got a great show today, everybody. Monroe Anderson will be here. He never hides under a table, D.
That conservative under the table has a very high-pitched voice.
Come on out. I'm hungry. Oh, we have to feed the conservative.
I know.
Hold on. Let me give you some water. Here we go.
He's actually doing this.
From the sun.
He took a mug of water and put it under the table.
Stop spilling the water. God, those conservatives are such messy drinkers. Anyway, they're so scared. Donald Trump won't tweet about you, okay? Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, Monroe Anderson, he doesn't hide under the table. He's got guts to say what he thinks, right? Get him talking about eating, cheating, and, all those good things. Anyway, Atiba Buchanan will be here. Humanity in the Headlines. That's his podcast. And between the two of them, Monroe Anderson and Atiba Buchanan will be talking Trump, and Mueller. Yes, D, I know you're getting to Mueller. We'll be talking all about that good stuff with them. They know more about it than any man alive, including the conservatives hiding under the table. What? You want some of Leah's bagel? You gonna eat that bagel left, Leah?
I finished it.
Oh, sorry. Go get your own bagel. Anyway, the conservatives are so scared they're under the table. And I'll tell you someone else who's not scared, D. Amisha Patel, Grassroots Collaborative, our favorite community activist. She'll be in the studio at 2:30 or so. Talk about what went down in the city council. Oh, busy day at the city council. I guess Ed Burke had a showdown with Lori Lightfoot, huh? We'll be talking about that as well. All the good stuff. Lots of political talk, and political talk. But before we do any of that,
Tennis talk.
Hold on, D. All right. Take a nap. It'll be okay. I had to talk to the conservative under the table. Before we do any of that, it's Dennis talk. What you got for me, boy?
That's political news, too. And, hey, dude, I am loving that under the table bit. Keep it up. That's good stuff.
Oh, yeah. He's like, hold on, D. He's thirsty again.
Oh,
Yeah, guy's tired.
Bring it up.
There you go. Here you go. Okay.
Take care of him.
We'll get more water. This is a great water fountain just down the hall from us here.
All right, it's the middle of the day. Okay, drinking
That water's delicious.
fantastic water at the Chicago Sun-Times. It's the middle of the day. Let's talk about the national news happening this afternoon.
Okay.
Big day today. Special counsel Robert Mueller made a public statement for the first time about his nearly 2-year investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. It was brief but impactful. Mueller opened by announcing that he was formally closing the office and resigning his post at the Department of Justice.
Now, I have not spoken publicly during our investigation. I'm speaking out today because our investigation is complete. The Attorney General has made the report on our investigation largely public. We are formally closing the special counsel's office, and as well, I'm resigning from the Department of Justice to return to private life.
Wow. As you hear his voice, it is weird. You know, you
Right.
get Mueller. We've been talking about it with Monroe Anderson for like 5,000 years, it seems like. And then you just hear his voice. It's kind of bizarre. I miss you, Mueller. Please stay. Come back, Mueller. Anyway, I'm sure there's more to that than just him saying he's resigning, correct?
He then explained in detail what exactly his investigation discovered.
As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. The indictment alleges that they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign. They stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate. And at the same time, as the grand jury alleged in a separate indictment, a private Russian entity engaged in a social media operation where Russian citizens posed as Americans in order to influence an election. These indictments contain allegations, and we are not commenting on the guilt or the innocence of any specific defendant. Every defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty.
They always put that line in there. Oh, you're innocent until proven otherwise. Everybody's rolling their eyes. I was just talking about this, D. I did not know that. I did not hear that until you played that. It's like great minds think alike. But yeah, they hacked into the computers. Yeah, they tilted things so it would favor Trump over Clinton. And yes, they still didn't win. Only in America. America is the only system that I know of where a winner is the person who scores less than the other person. That's how our presidential election system works, folks. Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, and yet Donald Trump gets to be the president and claim he has a mandate. And many of the votes he got, he was the beneficiary of Russians hacking into Democratic computers and stealing and cheating. And Republicans don't see there's anything wrong with that.
Ask that guy under the table.
All right, hold on.
Yeah. What? What's that?
Huh? Oh, he says she's really scared of Trump. He's what? Mean? Trump's mean with the Twitter? Okay, he's afraid. He's afraid. He's so afraid. By the way, if you want to, we're going to be talking about this with Monroe. If you really want to get a sense of Republicans' sort of cavalier attitude to this, your good friend, young John Cass.
Oh, yeah. Big friend. We play
Johnny
basketball
Cass.
together.
Every time I call him Johnny Cass, people go, wait a minute, isn't it that singer? Okay, one more time, everybody. Johnny Cash is the singer. Johnny Cass is the MAGA hat lover. All
I
right?
can understand why people would get that confused.
Yeah, no, Johnny Cash. Oh, I wish Johnny Cash were around. Love to hear what he has to say about the Mueller report. Anyway, it's so funny. Mueller lays it all out there, and yet Republicans, we don't care. It's not that big a deal. I'm afraid of Trump. What else did he have to say, D?
Finally, it's the audio that all the media outlets are running with today.
The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting attorney general apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime. The introduction to the Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Even if the charge is kept under seal and hidden from public view, that too is prohibited. The special counsel's office is part of the Department of Justice, and by regulation, it was bound by that department policy. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider.
Wow. So in other words, the only reason they didn't charge him with a crime is because of this cockamamie policies that says you can't charge a president with a crime even if he commits a crime. All right. So, that's good enough for most Republicans. Well, let's just move on now. Unbelievable lawlessness here in the White House. Yeah, it's pretty clear. First of all, I think it was a crime when they met with when Trump officials, campaign officials, met with Russians at roughly the same time. The Russians were hacking into the Democratic computers. But I think anybody who is being objective, as opposed to being afraid of a presidential tweet, would have to concede that it was a crime for Donald Trump and his aides to figure out ways to obstruct justice, to try to conceal the evidence of their conspiring with the Russians and their bad behavior. I do not know how any Republican can justify looking the other way at that. And so Mueller makes it. You know what, D? I like to say he made it clear, but even then he doesn't make it clear. There's just something about the way he puts his sentences together, and it's not coming out clear. He should just say, I would have charged him, but the policy is that I can't charge a president. But I don't know. Anyway, I shouldn't complain because that's as close as any official would come to saying that Donald Trump committed a crime.
So now that Mueller has spoken, the Trump White House obviously has
they
have their game plan.
No collusion.
Here we go.
But a handful of our 2020 Democratic presidential candidates have weighed in on this as well. First up, here is U.S. Representative out of Massachusetts, candidate Seth Moulton, also known as, Seth who? Forget about that guy sometimes. Well, all the time, in fact. He says, Mueller did his job. Now it's time to do ours. Impeachment hearings should begin tomorrow.
All right, I hear. Seth Rogen, did you say?
Seth Rogen. Yeah, that's it. We're just going to go. No, Seth Moulton.
Just kidding, guys.
Here's California Senator and 2020. By the way, Seth Moulton, huge fan of the show. He is pissed right now that you just did that. California Senator 2020 candidate here, Kamala Harris said, what Robert Mueller basically did was return an impeachment referral. Now it is up to Congress to hold this president accountable. We need to start impeachment proceedings. It's our constitutional obligation.
Here. Let's get those impeachment hearings going.
Up next, it's Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke said there must be consequences, accountability, and justice. The only way to ensure that is to begin impeachment proceedings.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm not really feeling Beto O'Rourke's campaign. Are you feeling it?
No.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it. I mean,
he kind of had his own thing going on. Then the Obama people came in, and now he's just kind of like everybody else.
Yeah. When do you mean the Obama people came in?
Remember he had his campaign staff come in during, remember we talked about that weeks ago?
Yeah, I guess. I remember. I don't know. I just thought the guy ran a strong campaign for senator in Texas. And, give it another go in Texas. Just to jump from losing in Texas to running for president. Just not making it. I'm on a tangent here, D, but the Democratic candidates come with these like narratives about themselves as opposed to like real experience of things that they've done. Are you right? They're emulating Obama. And it worked for Obama. I got to give him credit. It worked for Obama. I'm not sure it's the right path to take in 2020. Anyway, a tangent there. Go ahead, young man.
Up next, 2020 presidential candidate Julian Castro. He says Mueller made clear this morning that his investigation now lays at the feet of Congress. No one is above the law. Congress should begin an impeachment inquiry.
I agree with him, but I have to disagree with him when it comes to our political process. Apparently, Trump is above the law when in the eyes of Republicans, and since they're the ones who are the jury, if there is an impeachment, it will come down to the Senate. Trump will get away with it.
All right, and finally, Elizabeth Warren here. She numbered 3 things here. She says Mueller leaves no doubt.
Number 1.
He didn't exonerate the president because there was evidence he committed crimes.
Yes.
Number 2.
Yes.
Justice Department policy prevented him from charging the president with any crimes. And finally,
Number 3.
the Constitution leaves it up to Congress to act, and that's impeachment.
I agree with everything she said. That policy, I don't even know how strong that policy about the Justice Department, the so-called policy about not indicting presidents if they commit a crime. I mean, that's a whole discussion in and of itself. Could they get away with murder? I mean, well, in some cases, I'm not even go there, but could they, is there no crime that a president would be free to commit? Are all crimes possible for a president? I don't get that. I don't see why that policy exists. And it's sort of like automatic prerogative here in the city of Chicago. It's like these policies, like I'm not even sure they even exist, and yet they seem to have a life of their own.
Over on the live stream chat room, Kyle asks, does Dr. D, that's me, by the way, guys, I'm Dennis, how's it going? Does Dr. D have a Mueller voice? No, I don't, not yet. I've only heard him like
That's
twice.
A great question.
Yeah.
That is a great question.
As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian.
That was me.
Wow, you're fast. That's unbelievable.
No, I don't have one. I got nothing.
It's kind of a husky thing, a little raspy. I think you may have smoked cigarettes at some point.
All right, I got to sit down on that one and work on the Mueller voice.
He's like an old hipster.
Oh, awesome. Find him in Logan Square. All right, we'll keep you posted on these stories.
Drinking beer.
As today's program rolls along. But coming up after this short little break, people, we're moving on. We're going to find out what's going on locally. We are going to find out what else is new. So don't go anywhere. It's the Ben Joravsky Show.
Hey, playing now at Steppenwolf Theater, the world premiere of Ms. Black for President. It's inspired by the true, that's true as in it really happened, TRUE story of Joan Jett Black, America's first drag queen presidential candidate. You know who created it, D?
No.
It was created by Tony nominee Tina Landau.
Oh.
And you know who else created it?
No.
Oscar winner Terrell Alvin McCraney. You know him, Moonlight.
Oh, yeah.
For tickets, visit steppenwolf.org. That's Steppenwolf, like the rock group from the 60s, .org.
Hang tight, millennials. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Cirque du Soleil's Big Top comes back to Chicago with its latest show, Volta. Venture into a captivating voyage of discovery inspired by the adventurous spirit of freedom, where a surge of action sparks a high-voltage journey. Volta. Playing May 18th through July 6th under the Big Top at Soldier Field. Tickets at CirqueDuSoleil.com. Volta thanks their partners Hennessy Black and Champagne Nicolas Fayette.
Hey, that commercial break's over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
All right, we are indeed live, and the time of day has come where the doctor takes the deep dive in the local news.
Yes, people, we're about to find out what's going on locally. It's time for What Else is News. Today was Lori Lightfoot's first city council meeting as mayor of Chicago, and we're going to talk about it. But first, J.B. Pritzker said it a while back, Illinois has gotten its mojo back. And you know what? I think the big feller may be right here, Ben.
Got my mojo.
Okay, no sing. Fresh off of his fair tax legislation passing the House yesterday, the Pritzker train is not stopping. Full speed ahead, Ben Joravsky, on to the next bill, because rumor has it that the Illinois Senate will pick up on their discussions on House Bill 1438, a.k.a. the cannabis legalization bill. And it is Senate Amendment 2 to House Bill, 1438. Ben Joravsky, your thoughts?
Well, they can't pass it fast enough as far as I'm concerned. You know me on this. By the way, there was a really good story in the Sun-Times. Hold on, let me open the Sun-Times. Hold on, here, I'm opening the Sun-Times. In the sports section. Yeah, I know I'm normally not allowed to talk about anything related to sports.
What are you about to talk about right now?
But it's related. It's related. Chris Long. Did you see this?
No, I did not.
Do you know who Chris Long is?
No, I do not.
All right, very good. Chris Long is a football player, a great defensive end.
Howie Long's kid.
Look at the brain on Brad. Yes, indeed. Howie Long's kid. One of his two sons that plays football. The other one is Kyle Long, who plays for the Chicago Bears. I know you knew that. And anyway, Chris Long just retired. Very much of an activist, even as a football player, a liberal activist, if you will, which is kind of rare for football players. But anyway, retired defensive end Chris Long, who last week revealed his longtime marijuana use and detailed how he beat NFL drug tests, said Tuesday he hopes the league will overcome the stigma associated with the drug, but admitted there's still much progress to be made. He said, quote, "I think the reaction has been interesting because even people that support you, it just shows the stigmatization is so ingrained. A lot of people are tweeting at me, and every tweet is like, 'Hey man, are you going to spark one up, dude?' I'm like, chill with the stereotypes. Marijuana is a part of people's lives. It's not their life. And then you have the minority, which is less than 10% of the responses I've seen, which are like, that stuff's the devil." In other words, he says, D, we should stop making fun of people for smoking marijuana, that the age of Cheech and Chong jokes is over, and that we shouldn't do bong jokes anymore. All right? That's what he said. I'm just saying this. I agree with Chris Long. I think it's insane that the NFL prohibits marijuana and punishes players who are caught smoking marijuana or having with marijuana in their system, but they allow, dangerous painkillers, opioids, to be used. And the players are in pain. And if the football players think that marijuana helps them ease the pain, then why shouldn't the NFL allow them to smoke marijuana? It just doesn't make any sense. It's like everything else in the marijuana debate. Marijuana has been demonized. Marijuana has been turned into this awful vice when, in fact, so many people use it that it has benefits for people who are suffering from pain. And yet it's taking so long to rid ourselves of these just old notions that are leftovers from the 60s. So I don't think that bill can be passed soon enough. But I have to disagree with Chris. I like making reefer jokes, D. I guess you do, too. Sorry, Chris Long.
The Senate will reconvene at about 5:30 this afternoon. The plan is to run the cannabis bill on the floor after a few warm-up bills. All right, now let's unpack.
A few warm-up bills? What are they, doing exercises now?
This Pritzker campaign, they're not playing around here.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, we got some warm-up bills. Get those going. All right, now let's...
Wait, that's your Pritzker imitation.
That's my Pritzker, yeah.
Let's do it again.
I've got some warm-up pills here.
I am not a perfect person.
Oh, by the way, here's this.
After years of neglect, Illinois is finally getting its mojo back.
Yeah.
And we're open for business.
Woo!
I don't know what a warm-up bill is.
Get that warm-up bill.
It's like when they get to, it's like they get to vote no on a couple bills, that gets it out of their system, so they vote yes on the. I could see many of our guests do yoga before they come. Mike Novak, by the way, always stretching.
Good Lord, he's hit me in the face. He's got long arms.
After years of neglect, Illinois is finally getting its mojo back. And we're open for business.
All right. All right, Bill, gets that warm-up, JB.
Now let's unpack today's city council meeting. Like we said, it was the first city council meeting under a mayor, Lori Lightfoot. And today's meeting was all about getting Lightfoot's committee chairman and leadership team voted in. She has her hand-picked favorites, and she's calling on the aldermen via a voice vote, yay or nay. And Ben, wouldn't you know, her committee was voted in.
Yeah.
But there were a few unhappy campers at today's city council meeting.
Really?
Like no one's favorite alderman, the guy that was charged but not officially indicted.
Yeah.
14th Ward Alderman Ed Burke. Before we get into all of that, Ben Joravsky, tell us your thoughts on Lori Lightfoot's new leadership team, and how do you think they're going to fare out here?
Well, all right. I talked about this with Maya. This is one of my favorite topics. Listen, we have a strange system in the city of Chicago where the mayor determines who gets to chair the committees of the city council. So we're supposed to have a split where, you have the legislative branch and the executive branch, the legislative branch being the city council, executive branch being the mayor, and there's supposed to be a checks and balance system. But in the city of Chicago, the executive controls the legislative. That's apparently the system you want, people. You keep voting for it. Now, it just so happens, D, that I appreciate the selections that Lori Lightfoot has made to run these committees, like Scotty Wagasback at Finance, more than I appreciated the selections that Rahm Emanuel and Mayor Daley made to run these committees, like Ed Burke in Finance. But that does not mean I agree with the principle that the executive should choose the legislator. I think it's a principle. The legislators should choose their own. The problem is, the alderman would probably choose Ed Burke to run. The guy could be in the federal clink, and he really knows how to run a meeting.
He knows the players in the game, Benny.
Okay, yeah. So what? He may have shaken down a few people to get property tax business, but no one runs a meeting like Ed Burke. Anyway, so we have a very strange system here in the city of Chicago.
Now on to Ed Burke and Lori. And, I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of content from these two.
Ed Burke.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran, the Woe Man Spielman. Seriously, if you haven't watched the Fran Spielman show, you're making a big mistake, all right? Chicago.suntimes.com. The Fran Spielman show, a fantastic program. All right, so here's the article from Fran Spielman. Lightfoot easily survived her test after deftly handling an early skirmish with Burke. Her political arch-rival, long before the now-deposed finance chairman was charged with attempted extortion, setting Lightfoot on a path to the mayor's office. Burke rose to complain that the council rules drafted by the Lightfoot administration were not gender-neutral and that it was a big mistake, particularly with a woman as mayor. Lightfoot then reminded Burke that he had been in the council for 50 years. Implied but not stated was that he had never raised such concerns about gender neutrality in council rules before. Clearly annoyed with the line of questioning, Lightfoot told Burke to wrap it up. Probably hadn't heard that in a while. She told the once powerful alderman, who is now just one of 50, that his concerns would be taken under advisement.
Yeah, under advisement. You know what that means? Oh, I'm going to throw it in the wastebasket.
Aisle 13.
Monroe Anderson has entered. Monroe Anderson, good friend of Ed Burke. We'll get into that in a little while. But you know what? What goes around comes around. Ed Burke was a bully for all these years, and no one's standing up to him. And I remember, when Rahm took office, and we thought he might confront Ed Burke, but you know where he was, D? Under the table. Hey, Rahm, come on out.
Take a chill pill, man.
Rahm decided he would just allow Burke to run the finance committee and continue his practice of having a property tax business where he got to shake down people who were doing business with the city of Chicago or wanted to do business in the city of Chicago. So Lori Lightfoot has made, in my humble opinion, and I believe that Monroe Anderson will agree with me, a step in the right direction in terms of removing Ed Burke from his perch of power in the city council and turning it over to Scotty Wagasback, who I believe will be less corrupt and more fair and equitable. And Ed Burke is crying. Feel sorry for him.
And boy, did I learn something new today. Today I learned that when you want the best live wall-to-wall coverage of a Chicago council meeting, there is no better source than the Chicago Sun-Times' own Fran the Woe Man Spielman on her Twitter account.
No, she's good at
She's
Twitter.
awesome on Twitter.
Yeah.
Here's her live take on the altercation between Burke and Lightfoot. She tweeted, quote, or tweet, whatever, "This is classic. Lightfoot and Burke have been archenemies long before he was charged with attempted extortion. She tells Burke his points will be taken under advisement and we're going to move forward. And Lightfoot deftly handles early skirmish with Burke. She swats him down like a pesky fly. And the rules she drafted are adopted by voice vote."
Oh, man. By the way, the voice vote thing, Monroe, I just got to tell you, what a bunch of cowards. Voice vote. Instead of just saying, all right, we'll start off with the first ward, and then the alderman, Danny Alato gets up and he goes, I vote whatever. And
They were saving time.
Saving their skin is more like it. I'm scared. So I'll just say, and then I don't know if you have this in your news, D, but I read this, I think in Fran Spielman, who else. They somehow or other counted 4 no's. How do you determine that it's 4 no's in a voice vote? Let's everybody here go no. 1, 2, 3. No. How do you know how many people said no?
Because if you're going to vote no, you put your hand over your mouth like see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Oh, so she was counted the people who were hiding. I see nothing. Anyway, they found 4 people willing to.
They're going, those 4 are going, how about that Trump?
Yeah, how about that Trump, man? Yeah. So anyway, that's democracy in the Chicago City Council. I'm scared. We'll do a voice vote.
So Lightfoot's team has been voted in via voice vote with 4 no's, apparently.
Oh, but how they found 4 no's out of a voice vote?
I think that sounds like 4.
I don't know. I'm pretty good here. I got good ears. I'm not too good with seeing, but I could determine 4 votes.
Hey, again, this is in Trump's cabinet. So they needed some no's just to prove that there was.
I see, yeah. Well, let that be said. There are, I'll say this about democracy in this. There's more democracy in the city of Chicago because even if the aldermen were so scared they went to a voice vote, they apparently found 4 of them willing to vote against Lori Lightfoot. You can't find 4 Republicans in the entire United States willing to say that Donald Trump committed a crime.
Wait, look under the table.
Hold on. Oh, they're thirsty. Hold on. I have to. The Republicans who are hiding under the table, Monroe, are thirsty.
Big bit.
Well, we do have Justin Amash.
We have one in the entire country.
Right.
How many? There's got to be like 50 million Republicans in the country, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how many votes? I don't even know. How many votes?
He got 60 million.
60?
Yeah,
Oh, 60.
60.
Okay. 60 million Republicans in the country. One has got guts. One. Oh, my God. You know what? I will not bash my aldermanic brothers and sisters ever again. They got more guts than all the Republicans in the country.
All right, these fellers are ready to talk some Trump news and some national politics, so we're going to go ahead and put what else is news to bed here. But hey, the first of many, I feel, of Lori Lightfoot Ed Berg stories today.
Oh, yeah, showdown. Well, let me tell you.
He and Trump will be cellmates pretty soon.
Monroe Anderson's in rare form, folks. So, but we're going to move on to Monroe. But before we do, I got to tell you something. Whoa, that's the cell door shutting on Trump and Ed Berg. I want to tell you something that Kelly Cassidy, who appeared on the front page of the Tribune, not my beloved Sun-Times, but the Tribune, and Neil Cassidy and David Cassidy all agree. You did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. We got Monroe Anderson sitting here, and he's fired up, ready to go when we return.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times Online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader Online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by the Northwestern Summer Writers Conference. Now in its 15th year, the 3-day conference held in Chicago features a diverse array of workshops, speakers, discussions, and readings. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/writers.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. It's a Wednesday. That means Monroe Anderson is in the studio. What do we call it? Midday with Monroe?
Monroe midweek.
Oh, my God. I got everything wrong. I got the
Well,
word
you
wrong.
got the name right.
Monroe, I
That's
know.
what counts.
I've known Monroe for about 50,000 years. And anyway, we're going to take the deep dive on Trump. The man has been consistently anti-Trump from the moment Trump won that election.
Right, and from your first show to today.
Yeah, and
I'm still saying impeach.
Yeah. He should have been impeached because he shouldn't have been allowed to take office in the first place, Monroe. We have a strange system. He got less votes than Hillary Clinton.
Right.
I had to ask all my guests who come in the studio, what other game, what other contest does the person who loses get to win?
Bocce ball.
Is that true?
If you get close, that counts.
Yeah, but that's okay. But the winner is the guy who presumably gets the closest. Okay, if they get bocce ball, they go, "Well, I didn't get. You got closer than I did, but I'm declaring myself the winner anyway." Okay, well, whatever. That's democracy in the United States. I'm starting to appreciate the democracy. By the way, before we go to Trump, you're an old pal, Ed Burke. I know we've told this story many times, but you must get a kick out of this, Monroe. Ed Burke was in all his glory and power when you were a press secretary for Eugene Sawyer way back when in the dinosaur days,
Right.
and he couldn't stand you at all.
Well, this is how I upset him. He was considering running for mayor because he was upset when Daley was running, and so he was upset about that and said, basically, if I remember the quote right, the little prince isn't going to get it this time.
Yeah, he didn't like Richie Daley.
No. So the Tribune calls me as press secretary because they're all going to run against Sawyer.
Yeah.
He calls me. They call me and they want to know what I think about it because I covered Harold Washington and I had been in the press room when Burke would come through and talk about Washington performing oral sex on men. I mean, through the press room loudly, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. That was one of their obsessions. And it's so bizarre. Now, today, he's allegedly standing up for the notion of like gender equality in titles and stuff.
Yes,
but back in the
course.
80s,
Yes,
he was
course.
spreading all these rumors, intending to undercut Harold Washington by
Every which way he could.
every which way he could, yeah.
And Harold's position was that Verdoliak was not a racist. He was just a sleazy businessman trying to figure out how to make a buck.
Verdoliak being the other alderman
Yeah,
who
the
was
two
tied
Eddies.
together with Ed Burke
Yeah, the two
to
Eddies, they
opposing,
call them.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas Harold maintained that Burke was a racist. So anyway, I'm called by the Tribune as the press secretary. They call me and want to know what I think about it. And I say that Burke was a pariah because of what he had done to Harold during the 29 days.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was a city employee, Burke went off. I was at the Purple Cruise.
Yeah,
Purple.
the Cup being a columnist for the Sun-Times used to do the cruise to
Yeah.
raise money for vets.
Yeah, right. And it was called the Purple something. I don't remember.
It's the Purple Cruise?
Yeah, something.
Purple Heart Cruise,
Yeah,
maybe?
Purple Heart, I think it was. Yeah. I mean, we were maybe 25 feet away from each other, 50 feet away.
You and Burke.
And Burke on the pier,
Yeah.
about to go on the boat. And he had read what I said in the Tribune. And so he yells at me and says, I ought to kick your ass. And I look at him and I go, I give him the bring it on.
Oh, that tough guy from Gary, Indiana, all right?
Now, as it turns out, of course, Burke had his bodyguards.
Yeah.
I had Mayor Sawyer's bodyguards. So we weren't going to be fighting.
No, the bodyguards would be fighting each other.
Exactly.
Who would have won that fight, by the way?
My Sawyer's bodyguards would have beat up Burke's.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
all right.
I think.
Okay. Proxy fight of
Right,
bodyguards.
Exactly right. So anyway, after that, he threatens. He goes on TV and he threatens to have my salary removed from the budget, the city budget.
Yeah, that's how much power he
Yeah,
had.
exactly. And so I go on TV and I say, well, I would hope Mr. Burke, Alderman Burke, wouldn't do that because I have 2 young children and a wife, a family to support, and I hope he wouldn't take it out on them. And So it went away after.
By the way, this is so many years ago that those two young children that Monroe alluded to are now like, what, in their 30s?
Yeah,
or,
right. One's 35, the other's 33.
Unbelievable how much time has gone by.
Exactly.
Great kids, by the way. So, but then later you hugged it out. And
yeah, in Denver
yeah.
at the DNC.
Yeah,
but up until that time, we never spoke to each other.
Yeah.
Every year, Bill Curtis would have a Christmas party in December.
Yeah.
And Joyce and I, my wife, and I would be there. And Ann Burke and Ed Burke would be there. I talked with Ann Burke, but I never talked with Ed Burke. And vice versa.
Yeah. And he would just walk past you in such
just
a
ignore
Cold War. By the way, I was never invited to those Christmas parties.
Yeah, right.
We get invited to anything. Bill Curtis's Christmas parties.
Your Christmas party is better than Bill Curtis's.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I owe that to my wife and my daughters. All right, now, it's a rocking good time. Robert Mueller finally appeared, came out from the curtain. The Great Oz came out from behind the curtain. Dennis played some clips of him a little while ago, and I was struck. I'd never heard the voice before.
Yeah.
It was kind of eerie here. You hear about Mueller.
Right, exactly.
You'd see pictures and footage of him like walking into buildings and stuff, but to hear his voice. I don't know, had you ever heard his voice before?
No. Not to my knowledge, yeah. They've played clips of him in earlier events that he was in because he's been around forever. He's an institution. But I don't recall hearing his voice.
Yeah. Well, we'll play when Atiba comes. We're going to have some fun with this. We'll play the clips of Mueller again, and then I'll read to you the column from your old friend, Johnny Cass in the Tribune, who you'll get a kick out of. I read the Tribune's columns and editorials, Monroe, so that you won't have to.
Yeah, right.
But
exactly.
then I force you to read them.
Yeah, right, exactly. I quit reading them when I stopped writing them.
You're writing for the Tribune, but
a column. I was an op-ed page column at the Tribune for a year and a half.
Yes, I do remember that, and you were probably way too left for them. But anyway,
yes.
So what do you think the impact of Mueller's comments will be?
The impeachment. The Democrats are going to. Well, they'll start impeachment inquiries first. They need to be back. Right now, they're scattered all over the country in their respective districts. But when they get back, they'll be in rooms.
When they get back to Washington.
When they get back to Washington. And they will start the impeachment. And it'll be before 4th of July.
Wait a minute. Okay, Monroe originally said that he would be gone. Trump would be gone by the 4th of July. So now it's been watered down to the impeachment.
No, not watered down. I backed off the branch a little bit.
Okay, a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Well, do you think Mueller, that was his intention? To rev up the impeachment engine by coming forth with this?
No. I think his intention, and of course he also quit today, resigned. But I think because Trump and Barr were lying so frequently and so wildly that he was he fed up with his report being misrepresented. And so he came to defend the report that he spent 22 months working on with his people.
But he has to realize that by coming forth and stating it, he will be giving motivation to Democrats to
in
impeach.
His report, he said that it was not his job to indict because there's an OLC committee. It says that it has a memo that goes back to the 70s, I think, or 90s. I forget.
Yeah, this policy, I talked about this earlier, this parent justice. I don't buy this. Do you buy this policy? You cannot indict a sitting president?
No, I don't buy it.
I mean, are they immune from any indictment?
It goes back to the 90s because this was a reaction to the Starr report. Because Clinton got so tied up on his indictment that he wasn't nearly as effective in his second term as he was his first.
No, I would argue. I don't know. An argument could be made that it was just as ineffective. The first term was the one in which he passed the crime bill, which the Democrats been running from ever since.
Yeah. He got stuff done. Now, whether we agree with it or not,
couldn't get health care done. He could not get health care.
Right. No, that was the almighty Obama only.
Almighty Obama. Oh, yeah, how soon we have forgotten almighty Obama.
Right. And if you hear Trump talk about it now, Obama didn't do anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
Except mess up. He screwed this up. He screwed that up.
So in other words, you don't think that Mueller was intending to rev up those impeachment engines?
No, I don't think that was. This is okay. This is what he was doing. Mm-hmm. In the Mueller report, he said this was not his judgment. It was to be Congress. That they were to make this. Mm-hmm. These are the crimes that Trump committed.
Yeah.
He named the 10 obstructive acts,
mm-hmm.
the nexus, and the intent. So it was like, okay, this is what he did that was crooked. Mm-hmm. This is how it started and what happened with it. And this is what he was intended to accomplish in the process. 10 times, not once, not twice, 10 times. Mm-hmm. He named those things. It was like, okay, here it is. Do your job. Indict the guy.
Mm-hmm. Impeach the guy.
Well, the House actually is the indictment guy.
That is correct.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets
get your
technical.
point. I get your point.
And then it goes on trial in the Senate.
Yes, absolutely.
So he said, do that.
Yeah. And they didn't do it.
Well, because Barr sat on the report. Bill Barr sat on the report.
Attorney General Bill Barr.
Yeah. And then told a lie about how there was the report said he came out with the 4-page memo 4 days afterwards, or so 3 or 4 days after, said that this is the conclusion: no collusion, and Mueller sort of kind of said it might be some obstruction, but he didn't really say it. He said that he wasn't going to act on it, of which Trump did a mission accomplished dance and said no collusion, no obstruction.
Yeah.
No collusion.
And hoax.
Yeah.
And hoax.
Yeah.
Okay. So they let that lie out there. All the righties were high-fiving and drinking champagne along with the Ruskies.
Yep. Yeah. An interesting coalition, to put it mildly.
Exactly. Strange bedfellows.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were all celebrating. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, as you know, I wage war with right-wingers on my Facebook page all the time.
Yes.
In the meantime, I'm fighting with the wing nuts. Actually, I've changed their names. I now call them the Trump nuts.
Okay.
But
what did they say?
Anyway, they were saying, when was I going to apologize for defaming our great president and claiming that he was a Russian spy and he was a crook, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said back to them, why don't we see the report first?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going by what one guy said, and it doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
Okay, then finally when the report comes out, then of course they're still going with because Trump is telling them this.
Yeah, they got their talking points from Donald.
And we know everything comes out of his mouth is gospel.
Yeah, right.
And so he's saying
that's sarcasm, folks.
Okay. He's still saying no obstruction, no collusion.
Yeah.
No collusion.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
And so they're saying that you just can't stand the truth.
Yeah, that's what they say to you on Facebook.
Right, and then the other thing they say is you wait until Barr starts his investigation of the investigators.
Well, we'll be talking about this later. Yeah,
right.
That's the other talking point.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's their diversion. They're going to investigate the investigation, which is really curious. Suddenly, Republicans and conservatives are very concerned about the the potential lawlessness of investigators.
Right.
Where were they? They were awfully silent when the FBI and the Chicago police killed Fred Hampton in his bed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where were they? But it's so interesting when they pick and choose. When
they pick and choose all the time. This is the problem. When they were doing, I think it was 6 Benghazi investigations, and all of them came up empty-handed with nothing.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to bother them, these ongoing investigations. Now their whine is WHINE.
Yes.
Their whine is it's over. We got to stop. We've done it too much.
Yeah.
We spent $35 million, which first of all didn't cost the taxpayers $35 million because Trump's chief of staff, campaign manager, paid for a lot of it. Plus,
by the way,
yes,
I do not believe that any Republican anywhere should have the right to talk about a waste of public dollars when last week, this is in between the time since you've been here, Donald Trump announced that he discovered somewhere $16 billion with a B dollars to pay farmers not to produce goods so that he can help them from being punished. Protect them, if you will, from his trade war with China. I don't know if he'll actually pay the farmers that money. That's a whole other issue.
Right.
But they've lost all credibility in terms of whining about the costs of government when they discovered $16 billion, Monroe. I don't even know. Like, where was that money? Like, doesn't Congress have to allocate money? You understand what I'm saying? Like, where do they find $16 billion? So anyway, that's just my point.
Yeah, right. Oh, no. Trump, he just makes stuff up. He doesn't know how government, he's so incompetent. He doesn't know how government works, and he's too lazy to find out how government works. So he just makes it up. It goes along, and he says what he wants to or tweets what he wants to say.
By the way, before we get back to, do you think he'll actually pay those farmers that $16 billion? Or do you think that was just something he said that one day?
I think that was something he said. He doesn't, he's saying that he built the wall. He's been building the wall, which is not true.
Yeah.
When he in his business life, he cheated people all the time. He told them they were going to get paid, and then took them to court and didn't pay them. He lies. He cheats. As Amos said.
All right, now we're going. This is where we're going to go back.
Okay, as Amos said, if we don't impeach him, then who can we impeach?
Yeah.
In the future. I mean, if he sets the standard for not being impeachable, then who will be impeached in the future?
No, this is interesting. This is Congressman Justin Amash from Michigan, 3rd Congressional District in Michigan. I don't think you and I have talked about this one because it probably happened in between the last time we were on the show.
I mentioned him.
You mentioned him?
Week,
Okay.
Yeah, but we didn't get into
it. And this is a Republican. He is a Republican who calls himself a libertarian.
Actually, he's one of the original Tea Party people.
He's one of the original Tea Party people, and he has come to the conclusion, having read the Mueller report, that Congress has no choice if they're going to be true to the principles of checks and balances.
And what the founding fathers
wanted that they have to impeach Donald Trump. They have to call him on the carpet to have an official congressional investigation and trial into his misdeeds. They have to essentially indict him for his obstruction of justice in trying to cover up evidence of his potential criminal dealings with Putin and the Russians. One Republican.
And what's really interesting, he had a town hall yesterday, and he got a standing ovation.
What do you make of that?
I think
he had a town hall in his district.
Yeah. He got a standing ovation. Well, one thing, of course, is as you know, is most Americans hate Congress, but they love their congressman or congresswoman. So that's one factor.
That is really bizarre, by the way.
Yeah,
that whole contradiction I've always found very strange.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly. But also, they came to hear what he had to say. Because one of the things is one of the polls has somewhere in the high 60s Americans believing that Trump is lying. about this whole thing. Although he continues to lie, like it's working, but
Yeah.
it's not working. But those who are the Trump nuts, which is 35 to 40%
Of the population,
of
of the voting population.
yeah, they're of the you can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and we won't care group.
Yeah.
You know,
And they
so-
control the Republican Party, Monroe. Let's be clear. They
Yeah.
control the Republican
Yeah,
Party.
they're-
That's why the rest of the Republicans...
It's Trump's party. It's not the Republican Party. It's nothing like the Republican Party that your grandfather knew.
Well, my grandfather was never a member, just so you know. I'm
said-
defending my grandfather. Never. He was a New Deal Democrat, loved Roosevelt.
Wait. I didn't say he was one. I said he knew.
Okay,
You
all
know,
right,
I mean, if you stop and think about it, the Republicans helped get the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, a few of them did. You're
yeah,
absolutely correct.
yeah.
In fact, we had two Republicans who are from the 60s on the show on Sunday, Dee Bobian and Marcy Love, and it was their particular interest that motivates them is choice. They believe in a woman's right to choose.
Yeah.
And they recall the Republican Party of their day being filled with people who believed in choice, like Betty Ford and Gerald Ford and a younger George Bush, Daddy Bush.
Yeah.
And
probably Mitch Romney at the point.
probably George Romney, his father. I don't know about Mitch
Well, his
Romney.
father was a liberal.
Yeah, his father would be classified today a liberal. Michigan Governor
right.
George Romney,
Yeah, but
particularly on race issues.
Yeah, right.
He would have been a white
of course,
liberal.
Yeah, but of course Nixon would be a liberal nowadays.
Well,
No, he would, seriously. Nixon was more liberal than Clinton and Obama. If you look at
defend
his
that
policy-
position.
Okay, Nixon introduced affirmative action.
That is correct.
Yeah. His policies, well, the longer he's in office and he got power hungry, they started shifting. But he had some very liberal policies.
I'll put it to you this way. The world that existed when Richard Nixon was elected president in 1968 with the Vietnam War raging
Right.
was a far different world. Let me just put the policies, the politics of this country are far different then.
Right.
The conversation was much more to the left.
Exactly.
And
No, at that time,
yeah.
conservative was a dirty word. I mean, literally. I mean, if you call somebody conservative, it was a dirty word.
Hmm. Some would say it still is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but not the majority of
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, they made liberal a dirty word,
Yes,
and that's why liberals
exactly.
now call themselves progressives.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. This is why I declare myself just left of
well,
liberal.
I've been utterly obsessed with this, and I'm going back to what I was talking about yesterday. Over the Memorial Day weekend, I read Seymour Hersh's memoir, Reporter. Seymour Hersh, of course, a great investigative reporter of the 60s and 70s who uncovered so many dirty deeds by Richard Nixon. And I have to tell you, Monroe, reading that and going back in time and seeing what Nixon was up to and Kissinger was up to and the lying and the cheating and the story, I have to tell you that Donald Trump, in some ways, this is going to shock you, is an improvement, in my humble opinion. An improvement.
You don't know all the facts, obviously.
Well, I do not know everything that Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah, right. Trump has done so much stuff. You wait. This is why we have to have the impeachment.
Absolutely,
because
but
then we have them on. We have them on TV talking about.
I'm in an unusual position where I am quote unquote defending Donald Trump just by comparing him to Richard Nixon. But I'll put you this.
Oh no, Ben is becoming a Trump nut.
No, going down the road. Just.
Oh, what's that, Ben?
No collusion.
No,
He wanted me to play that.
I'm just pointing out that Richard Nixon was overseeing secret bombing of Cambodia, bringing a war into a country that was a neutral country that had no.
And you don't
gripe.
think Trump is trying to do that with Iran right now?
I put it this way: I have no evidence. I'm going to be worried about what I'm about to say. What am I about to say? You know what? I bet just to stop, because for all I know, he is bombing in Iran. I don't know.
He's setting it up. Bolton is doing the same thing with Iran that
John Bolton
did with Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same game plan.
All right. You know what? I try to defend you, Donald Trump, and Monroe Anderson cut me off at the knees. But Nixon was no joke. He was pretty bad, too. All right, we're going to...
he was bad.
Monroe Anderson is here. We're talking Trump. Atiba Buchanan will be coming in real soon, as I understand it. And we're going to take a break and be right back.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Discover the breadth and majesty of Chicago's architecture on a Chicago Architecture Center bus tour. From bungalows to Bauhaus, our expert docents will share the fascinating stories behind our city's architecture. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a bus tour right now. Oh my, look at that wonderful piece of architecture.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Biggest Jeff Manuel fan out there, Ben Joravsky, people. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, May 29th is just moments away. But before we get into that, we would like to thank the following unions once again for bringing back the Ben Joravsky Show. You people are awesome. First up, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8. No, not Aerosmith. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A big thank you to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky Show. And, of course, today's program is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Wednesday, May 29th. And live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, we still got Monroe Anderson in studio. We welcome back our good friend and host of Humanity in the Headlines, Atiba Buchanan, and it's the return of our favorite grassroots organizer, Amisha Patel. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Benny J. Ben Joravsky.
Yes, indeed. We're talking national politics now. We're talking Trump, but Amisha Patel will be here in a little while. We shift attention to the local politics. Don't worry, folks. Haven't given up on covering Chicago politics. Still utterly obsessed with it. City Council had its first meeting under Mayor Lightfoot. That's probably finished by now. I've missed most of it, actually, because I'm preparing for today's show, so we'll be talking about it as well tomorrow. I believe Amisha Patel was at that meeting. She's coming here. We're doing a lot of Lincoln Yards talk. They're the group that filed the suit to upset the Lincoln Yards TIF deal, handing out $2.3 billion, as I said earlier in the show. I'm always looking for assistance from my conservative, libertarian brothers and sisters on these issues of principle that supposedly matter so much to them. They are they speak out very strongly when it comes to giving money to poor people, when it comes to giving money to working people, when it comes to giving pension dollars to retirees. So I am waiting for them. I am just waiting for them to join with Amisha in that lawsuit challenging the city's deliverance of $2.3 billion to wealthy people.
They are so hypocritical. when you talk about choice versus pro-life,
yeah,
they're for protecting a child in the womb. But once they get out of the room, then you're on your own.
You're on your own, and they're going to throw some obstacles in your way.
Exactly.
So we'll be up. Monroe raises the issue of abortion. That's in the front pages of front page of the Tribune anyway. We'll get to that, but before we do, D, what you got for me, young man?
Oh, a few things, but I believe Amisha also is bringing a mystery guest. Is that right?
That's what I was told. That I do not know who the mystery guest is.
Man, who
Very
will it be?
trippy, man.
Oh, goodness. Find out later who that mystery guest will
Wasn't
be.
the secret agent Mueller?
Yeah, maybe it'd be Robert Mueller.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, wouldn't that be cool?
Whoa.
Then
We'd have to clean up in here.
Yeah, quick, get this pile of newspapers. That pile is growing, by the way, D.
All right, if you haven't heard the news, people, the Ben Joravsky Show just reached 1,500 likes on Facebook. Oh, my God. Watch out, WGN. We're coming for you. 1,500. We're celebrating with the caption contest. It's a Mayor Rahm, Governor J.B. Pritzker caption contest. Head over to our Facebook page and leave us your caption. At Benny J Show is the handle there if you want to follow us. At Benny J Show. The picture just begging for your caption is pinned on the top of the page. It's one of our now former mayor. How good does that feel to say? Former mayor, Rahm Emanuel. He's giving a speech. Per usual, he's got a goofy look on his face, but standing behind him is the governor, J.B. Pritzker. He's got a bit of a smirk on his face. It's pretty hilarious. Leave us your caption. We are going to keep this contest open until the end of tomorrow's program, Thursday. And yes, Ben Joravsky, unlike most of our contests, we actually have something to give away to our winners.
Wait, time out. We're going to do this tomorrow?
We're doing it tomorrow.
Well, let me see who will be the person. All right, let's see. Ooh, at Jeff Johnson and Candace Castillo will be in the studio. So
Candace.
Yeah, Candace and Jeff will be in the studio. They'll get to pick who the winners are. By the way, the picture, folks, when you check it out, you haven't seen it, Monroe, but the picture, there's a guy standing behind Rahm with his eyes closed, like he's sleeping as he's standing.
Our top three
My
captions
favorite
for this
part of
week's
it.
caption contest will get a pair of tickets to the Cirque du Soleil Volta. Now it's Soldier Field until July 6th, so best of luck to our captioners. Let's read the captions we have thus far. Once again, former Mayor Rahm giving a speech. There's a smug look on his face. Governor Pritzker standing behind him with a smirk on his face. Picture that as I read John's caption. John, okay, this is Mayor Rahm talking here. Okay. Says, Rahm, I made a dookie all by myself, and JB says, he did, I saw it, I'm so proud. Not sure if that'll give you the tickets, but a good caption nonetheless. Oh, Ben likes it. Okay, he likes it. On to Hector's caption. Hector puts here, I guess this is Rahm talking. I came, I saw, I closed down schools and mental health centers.
Oh, man, that's sad, but it's so true.
Here's Julie's caption. Oh, Julie puts, how about Smirk du Soleil? Ooh, I think we have a winner. That's a pretty good one.
That one,
That's a very clever one, Julie. He's no stranger to the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page. He's Bab. Here's Babber's caption. This is Rahm Emanuel talking. All right. Rahm Emanuel saying, I'd like to say this to my greatest critic, Ben Joravsky. Nancy Pelosi has no idea what she's doing. She should have begun an impeachment inquiry weeks ago.
Bab, you gotta love Babs, man.
If you don't know, there's a bit of a Facebook fight going on between Babs and Ben. It's really good.
Come on, I love Babs.
Next up, it's Ann's caption. This is Pritzker talking. All right, remember Pritzker standing behind Rahm on the picture, all right? It says here, you go first. No, we mean go. Get out of here. All right, we'll read one more, but don't worry.
That's good. I like that one.
We'll read one more, but don't worry. We're going to go out with a bang here, all right? Up next is a caption from the one, and trust us when we say the only, Frank Coconati.
Coconati
weighed in,
Monroe's
people.
favorite, Frank Coconati.
So give everybody a little description of who Frank Coconati is.
Well, Frank Coconati is a, oh God, how to do
Right.
Frank Coconati is a long-time, had been a long-time Democratic precinct captain, city worker, very much a willing member of the Democratic machine. He broke from the machine in the 90s. I've lost track. No, in the O's.
Yeah, to hook up with Jesse Jackson Jr.
And was Trumpville, and has become one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters in the city of Chicago. So even though I love Frank dearly, I think he's lost his freaking mind.
Frank weighed in on our caption contest, and I guess this is Mayor Rahm Emanuel talking here. Well, the picture is Rahm Emanuel talking, J.B. Pritzker standing behind him. Frank Coconati weighs in, and his caption is, "This is the result when you ignore campaign finance reform."
Okay. Frank suddenly for finance campaign reform.
Keep the captions coming, everybody. Remember, at the end of Thursday's program, we will award our best 3 captions, according to our guest, Candace Castillo, a pair of tickets to see Cirque du Soleil Volta now until July 6th at Soldier Field. Google Cirque du Soleil Volta for more information. Send us your captions, and good luck.
All right, very good. I'm happy to say that Atiba Buchanan has entered the studio. Always a blast having you here. Thank you so much for battling the traffic to get here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come, and I apologize to you and your audience for my tardiness.
Oh, don't worry about that. I mean, good God, that's your first person who's ever apologized for being late.
Yeah, we stalled, dude. It's good.
That's all good. Yeah. I've had people come in 45 minutes late going, I've arrived.
Right. You're setting a bad precedent here.
Yeah, no, Paul. This guy's been late so many times. On the old show, which was way out in the middle of nowhere. What was that station, D?
I don't know, but you got fired, right?
WCP, you're fired, that station. Anyway, Monroe was chronically late and whatever. It's all good. Thank you so much for showing up. All right, now, Atiba, I've been holding off on this because I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I've been teasing it all day and telling Monroe about it as well. As you know, we talked about this briefly. Robert Mueller had a press conference today. I don't know if it was a press conference since it was. He
read a statement.
He read a statement.
He didn't take questions.
Didn't take questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got to hear his voice. For me,
I know, right?
I was like, whoa, that's like deep, dude. Have you ever heard him before?
Very briefly, but not enough to commit it to memory to know what he'd sound like if I heard him again.
Are you good at imitations?
I'm not.
Oh, I was going to say, could you do an imitation of him now?
No. It'd take me a few more interviews, but I can get him. I can do an okay Trump, but.
What? Come on now.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. When
he's not a
it's
jukebox.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he sort of lays out the case against Donald Trump without coming out and saying that. Do you agree with me? That's sort of what he did today?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was saying to Monroe, I think he was starting the ball going on impeachment, whether that was his intention or not.
Yeah.
Do you think that was his intention?
I do think that was his intention. I mean, basically, the reason we are where we are is really because of one name. And it's not Robert Mueller, it's William Barr. Because what Mueller had to do today was come out and try and right the ship that William Barr had taken off course. So if you think about it, one thing he kept saying over and over again was that the work speaks for itself. The work speaks for itself. It really does. What he didn't anticipate in the months that he was completing and compiling all this information was that there was going to be an attorney general to come in and throw all that information away and misrepresent the information. Because if we had an unredacted Mueller report, we wouldn't be here.
That is very well put, Atiba. And so I agree with you. The work speaks for itself. And that brings me to this. You say that. Monroe says that. I say that. And we're on this podcast on page 2 of the Chicago Tribune for literally thousands and thousands of people to read. There's a gentleman named John Cass who's a little bit to the right of us, I would put it that way. They found a photo of John where he's not wearing a MAGA hat, but that's nice to know. In his heart, he's wearing his MAGA hat. And this is what John Cass had to say about the Mueller report and the current investigation. After years of investigation and tens of millions of dollars spent and scads of witnesses and bushels of documents subpoenaed, Mueller determined that Trump and other Americans did not conspire with Russia in the 2016 presidential election. Yes, Russia did interfere to help Trump over Hillary Clinton and turn Americans against each other. The Russian hacking of Democratic email and the release of WikiLeaks was profoundly embarrassing to the Democratic Party and to members of the media who were little more than propagandists for the Democratic team. But Mueller found there was no collusion, hence no crime of conspiracy with Russia, and this angered the Democrats to no end. Democrats pinned their political hopes on Trump being Putin's boo-boo. When there was no there, they became hysterical. Friendly journalists had given each other Pulitzer Prizes for work about Trump's role in the scheme that Mueller said didn't happen. Some of these journalists were epileptic, as were CNN, MSNBC, and other networks that had invested heavily in a Trump-Russia conspiracy. Your thoughts, Atiba?
Well, once again, Republicans, right-leaning people are doing a great job of oversimplifying this situation. It is far more nuanced than that. Robert Mueller came out today and basically said, I would have charged him if I could. But he indicated the main reason he didn't charge him was because it is against Department of Justice policy to charge a sitting president. It has nothing to do, and he left it to Congress. He said, if there's going to be any other criminal proceedings after the president, that's going to be a process outside of the Department of Justice. What process is that? Impeachment. Right. So he is literally setting up the plate for Congress to go ahead and, to your earlier point, begin the impeachment proceedings because there is there. His whole point was even if I couldn't even conceive if there was there because he's a sitting president and I couldn't indict him anyway. So again, it's a great job that he's doing with oversimplifying what the position is. Position is of Mueller, and it's far more nuanced than that.
Cass isn't oversimplifying. What Cass is doing, echo chamber, echo chamber, echo. And actually, he's auditioning for Sarah
Huckabee.
Huckabee.
You can call her Huckleberry. I like that.
Yeah, right.
I like that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He's trying to get a better paying job.
Does the press secretary to the president get more money than a columnist for the Chicago Tribune? I don't know. That's a whole other interesting point.
Well, she gets more than this columnist got.
But he goes on to call for an investigation of the investigators. In other words, now, so this is the line, and I think Monroe's correct here. So they've effectively taken that talking point that Donald Trump says that he was completely exonerated, even though he wasn't exonerated, that there was no crime here, even though I would argue the Russians hacking into Democratic computers is a crime.
Well,
people have been indicted for it.
Yeah,
yes.
Right, exactly. So no, that's definitely a crime. But no, with the collusion, which is a misnomer, it's actually conspiracy.
Yeah.
Basically, what Mueller's saying on that in his report is that there wasn't enough evidence to say that he did anything there, and why there wasn't enough evidence because some witnesses refused to go before Mueller's people,
mainly the president.
Yeah, and others too. Some of his people. Some evidence was destroyed. I mean, things were done that weren't right, and so they couldn't make the point, make the connection. But but that's sort of like saying, well, O.J. didn't do it because the jury found him
not guilty.
Were you saying that in 1995?
No. I was saying no.
Yeah.
I got the
it's like hearing that come
day,
out.
the day that OJ, the trial ended and the verdict came down.
Yeah.
I was called by Indigo, a reporter at Indigo, and she said, "What did I think about the the hearing, the
acquittal.
decision, the acquittal, and I said he got away with murder.
Yes, he did. All right.
And she gasped, the reporter, when I said that.
Well,
All right.
can I add something to that
Go
real
ahead.
quick? Because you make a very important distinction. There is a distinction between being innocent and being found not guilty.
Right.
And so Donald Trump is out here saying, I'm innocent.
Right.
And no one was even trying to evaluate innocence.
Right.
When you get arrested for killing someone, you're not guilty yet. You are innocent until proven guilty. And Mueller was saying even today that he couldn't charge the president because it would be unfair to charge him, and there's not going to be a court hearing for him to be able to justify, for the president to be able to speak for himself and justify his position.
Right.
So again, we're not trying to evaluate innocence, and that's what Trump is doing when he's out here, to your point, echoing. He's saying, I've been found innocent, and that's not the case at all. You can be not guilty, and that's a great point to bring up OJ, and everybody know you did it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, although, well, let's not redo the OJ thing, but the parallel is absolutely remarkable. The same people who are outraged that Donald Trump has not, quote unquote, been exonerated were and who are calling for an end to the inquisition of Donald Trump and are outraged to feel he's a victim, were screaming the loudest about how shocked at that jury that acquitted OJ. I just that just Atiba, I just can't get over. I don't know if you're younger than me. I don't know where you were in 1995.
I remember it clearly.
Yeah,
and I remember just the split screen of different reactions from a majority African American crowd versus a majority Caucasian crowd, and I remember it very clearly. And the one thing about I'm with you. I don't want to relitigate OJ, but bringing it to today, I just think that it's a stark comparison because Donald Trump essentially did it. Robert Mueller came out today and said he did it. He just wasn't able to because essentially I think what Mueller said today is that the sitting president is above the law.
I didn't buy that, Atiba.
Yeah,
I mean, I heard him say that.
But isn't that what he said?
Yes, that's what he said.
Well, no, he didn't quite say that. What he said was that he couldn't impeach as long as he was a sitting. I mean, he couldn't indict as long as he's a sitting president.
He said Justice Department policy prevents me.
And this is the really good part about this is once he's no longer president, they can indict him.
All right, but do you buy that, Atiba? Do you buy that an investigator cannot indict a sitting president for a crime? I mean,
Absolutely not, because we can either the laws equally apply to all citizens or it isn't. And I can understand the thinking behind that. I can understand the embarrassment behind, indicting a sitting president. But if Donald Trump the only reason we're talking about this is because essentially it's white collar crime. If Donald Trump went out and shot someone, we wouldn't be sitting here saying we can't indict a sitting president.
I don't know. I don't know. Right. I do not. That's the question I asked. Is murder exempt from this?
Right.
He said the policy is that the Justice Department policy is that we don't indict. Now, he did not distinguish between types of crime.
And the other thing too we have to remember too is that when a lot of these, because this is the Trump factor, when a lot of these rules and policies and everything came up dozens, hundreds of years ago, no one ever preconceived a president as corrupt as Trump. When we didn't make it a requirement when we made it voluntary for presidents to submit their tax returns, we just assumed everyone that ascended to the level of a Democratic or Republican nominee would be of such character that would not be an issue. Yeah. And now we have to literally make it a law for people who are the nominee to submit their tax returns because of Trump.
Yeah, but the founding fathers thought about this being a possibility. That's why they came up with impeachment.
Sure.
What have you. But what we have is Nixon and then Clinton, and Clinton ended up being more popular because he was indicted than not. And so the Democrats are doing a lot of hand wringing. They don't want to do it. The Clinton again, we got this policy of not indicting a sitting president as a result of the Starr investigation.
No, I actually feel that Atiba's onto something here. I feel that publicly we've reached a stage in national politics that's far removed from at least the appearance of national politics that existed when I was a kid, obsessed with politics. And this is on my mind a lot. I keep telling people I just got finished reading Seymour Hersh's memoir, Reporter, which talks about his investigations into Nixon and Johnson, et cetera. And Nixon and Johnson behind the scenes were absolutely corrupt. They just snubbed their nose at the law, but publicly they played the game. They were presidential.
Right.
Trump, if like
steps on all of it.
Yeah.
All from the tweeting to the name calling to he has completely changed the standard of the office. And unfortunately, he's done this. He's normalized it. Took him a couple years, but he got it done. We are not shocked when he says he talked about Joe Biden on foreign soil with a foreign entity on Memorial Day. That is the most unpatriotic thing you can do, and it's not a big deal. We talked about it, but that's normalized now. So again, a lot of the rules that we have in place, a lot of the expectations we have in place for presidents, he's blown that out of the water. Well, we could not conceive anyone's
I'll put a nuance on that.
Sure.
It is a big deal, but what has happened is, and this gets back to my sort of the theme of the day, is that the Republican Party has become so under the control of Donald Trump that they have thrown away anything resembling a principle that they've ever had, anything resembling like character that they've ever had. So that you have guys like John Cass, who's the page 2 columnist for the biggest newspaper in the city of Chicago, dismissing out of hand what he has to know. Because the guy's not dumb. I mean, you know him, Monroe. He's a good friend of yours. He's not dumb. I'm just kidding. But he has to know that there's a serious charges in the Mueller report against. It just dismisses them.
It's the echo chamber. That's what it is. What they do. Fox News sets the tone,
and they follow. But think what they're echoing. Think of what Atiba just said. They would not be dismissing if Barack Obama had been in, where was it, Japan, and had denounced who would have been in Mitt Romney, the Republicans would be going berserk, and Democrats.
They were critical of Michelle Obama for going sleeveless when she met the Queen of England.
Right.
I forgot that.
I want to go back to your article too, because he talked about investigating the investigators.
Yes.
And the audacity and the temerity that it takes to even make that statement aloud to anyone who's intellectually honest. Because as we speak here, Michael Cohen is in jail. And we have, what's his name? Michael Flynn going to jail.
Right.
And we have Papadopoulos, who's done his time in jail. Oh, and I think his campaign manager? Manafort's in jail.
Yeah.
So again, when you have all of that going on.
What is that?
I don't even know.
Man, that is a weird ring.
But when you have all these people in jail and the connective tissue between all of these people is Russia, how can you say let's investigate the investigators? That is so intellectually dishonest, because the assumption is that there's no there. Why would they even investigate? We have all these people in jail over their connections to Russia during the campaign, but they shouldn't have investigated it. I think that is just absolutely asinine.
Well, the argument they're trying to flip the argument and say that if you believe in transparency, I actually kind of I'm into as many investigations as we want. But how far do you think they'll push this, Monroe? How far do you think the Republicans will push the drive to quote unquote investigate the investigators?
They're going to push it a little bit longer, and then the impeachment's going to start. Impeachment is going to start, and that's going to distract everybody. And what's really interesting about that is Nancy and some of the more conservative Democrats are saying that we need to stick with the program. Come up with the policies and the good programs for Americans. The Republicans are going to let that happen. Mitch is going to, anything that the Democratic House passes when it gets to the Senate is DOA. So they can pass all this stuff, but it's not going anywhere. So they may as well have America focus on the scandalous behavior of Trump and his administration. and scandal trumps all anyway. I mean, you know, and let's say they passed a program where every American got $1 million or something, then the scandal is going to Trump.
Yeah. Well, it would be, the Senate has the power, I suppose, to launch an investigation into the investigators, which would be a spectacle I have not seen. I've lived through quite a bit. I guess the only thing even remotely comparable, and it's really a different thing, would have been in the 70s when the Senate investigated allegations of the CIA's overstepping and spying on Americans and overstepping into the affairs of other countries. There was the Frank Church investigations in the 70s. Yeah. But I can't recall an investigation into a law enforcement.
Right, and the difference is there's no there there.
Right.
I mean, you know, I mean, it's Russians were doing us wrong. And the FBI did its job and started looking into it, and they found out that Trump was connected to it. And so now Trump wants to try to make them look like they're the bad guy.
All right.
It's not there.
Amisha Patel, my next guest, is in the studio. We're going to bring her on real soon. But before I let you gentlemen go, I have to ask you about this one. I don't know if you saw this. Speaking of interesting takes on policy, Mitch McConnell had a comment the other day. He was asked, I don't know if you saw this, Atiba, what he would do if there was a Supreme Court vacancy next year. And he said, well, and Donald Trump had nominated someone like Barack Obama had nominated Merrick Garland, and he said, well, approve it, of course, hold hearings, of course. What's your thoughts about that?
I threw up a little in my mouth. That's just, I mean, I wasn't surprised because the levels of Republican hypocrisy never surprised me. But for him to say that the way that Merrick Garland was stonewalled and Justice Scalia died 11 months before the election was just absolutely disgusting. And the fact that he'd do a complete 180 because we have a Republican president can't be a surprise at all. I am a little surprised that he admitted it so soon. I thought he'd play a little better politics than that, kind of avoid the question. And then, you know, I ultimately figured his position would be to nominate the person to see them through. But again, I didn't think he would just be so brazen and bold about the statement so early before it could potentially happen.
Yeah.
This is a revenge thing with him because of Bork. I mean, he was so, as a young senator, he was so upset about Bork not getting appointed.
Robert Bork, yeah.
Yeah, getting appointed to the Supreme Court. That this has been his life's mission more than anything else, is with the Supreme Court judges.
Well, he was successful in 2016,
right.
Blocking Merrick Garland, and now we have two Trump toadies sitting on the bench, and Roe v. Wade could come down to
right.
to their decision.
And what's going to happen is when the Democrats get back the Senate and the White House.
You're predicting that's going to happen.
Yes,
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
As a result of the impeachment proceedings.
All right.
When they get them back, they're going to add 2 more Supreme Court justices' seats there to balance things out.
Oh, so you're going to do some packing? Yeah, that's your next prediction?
Yeah.
You think they're going to add 2 more?
They're going to add more. It's going to be 11.
Oh, 11. Okay.
11. Okay,
Yeah,
the David
right,
Ferris
exactly.
point of view.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
All right, that's Monroe Anderson with some more predictions. Atiba Buchanan.
I'd love for you to be right.
Yeah. You going to make any predictions before I let you go, Atiba?
Robert Mueller will testify publicly.
Oh, we didn't even get into that.
Oh, yeah.
He will be subpoenaed before, to come
he'll be
before
subpoenaed.
Congress.
And he should.
And he's now a private citizen, so he can't say no.
Right.
He can't.
That is correct.
He will testify.
Maybe
publicly.
that's what this was all about today.
Right.
To set himself up to be.
He doesn't want to do it.
Right.
But he's going to have to do it.
Yeah, he's going to have to.
Well, maybe he wants to do it. Maybe, you know that old line, the lady doth protest too much? Maybe he was protesting so much about not wanting to do it.
Right.
And now he steps down. He has no excuse anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope you're right, too.
Atiba Buchanan, Monroe Anderson, thank you so much for coming on. We got Amisha Patel. We're going to bring her on after this.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Cirque du Soleil's Big Top comes back to Chicago with its latest show, Volta. Venture into a captivating voyage of discovery inspired by the adventurous spirit of freedom, where a surge of action sparks a high-voltage journey. Volta. Playing May 18th through July 6th under the Big Top at Soldier Field. Tickets at CirqueDuSoleil.com. Volta thanks their partners Hennessy Black and Champagne Nicolas Fayette.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. See the city from a whole new angle on a Chicago Architecture Center tour. With more than 85 tours to choose from, there are endless stories to discover. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on a tour. Oh my, what magnificent architecture.
Hey, playing now at Steppenwolf Theater, the world premiere of Ms. Black for President. It's inspired by the true, that's true as in it really happened, TRUE story of Joan Jett Black, America's first drag queen presidential candidate. You know who created it, D?
No.
It was created by Tony nominee Tina Landau.
Oh.
And you know who else created it?
No.
Oscar winner Terrell Alvin McCraney. You know him, Moonlight.
Oh, yeah.
For tickets, visit steppenwolf.org. That's Steppenwolf, like the rock group from the 60s.
Hang tight, millennials. The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by the Northwestern Summer Writers Conference. Now in its 15th year, the 3-day conference held in Chicago features a diverse array of workshops, speakers, discussions, and readings. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/writers.
Economical, ecological, and very eclectic. You'll never know exactly what you will find at Green Element Resale, 6241 North Broadway, 11 to 7 Monday through Saturday and noon to 7 on Sundays. Green Element Resale, saving green all the way around. Stop in and shop soon. 6241 North Broadway, right around the Granville Red Line, right there by... I don't know, it's right there by the Granville Red Line. Can't think of the street name offhand there, but go check it out. And it's a fantastic thrift shop, the Green Element Resale, economical, ecological, and very eclectic. More at the Ben Joravsky Show in moments. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed, we are live. We're shifting gears a little bit. Amisha Patel is in the studio, Grassroots Collaborative, our favorite community organizer, as I like to say. Welcome back, Amisha.
It's good to be here.
And we haven't done this gag in a while. You have brought a mystery guest.
Oh, a mystery guest, you say?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, Amisha, why don't you introduce your mystery guest?
That music's amazing. Well, I'm excited to be here today with my mystery guest. We are currently involved in an exciting project, which is suing the city of Chicago for racial discrimination around its TIF program. And I've never gotten to say I'm here with my lawyer before. And
that may be a good thing. I don't know.
It's kind of fun. I'm here with my lawyer. This is Anil Chablani with, I'm going to mess up all the letters, so I'm going to let Anil talk about his organization and the great work that they do.
All right, Anil, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, and your organization is?
Yeah, I'm with the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights.
Okay, and so I have been cheering for a lawsuit against the TIF, the way the Chicago operates its TIF program for years. And generally, I'm no lawyer. You're
kidding.
Tell you. I always act.
Really?
Wow. I barely got through high school, but I play a lawyer in my life, and I'm always. And lawyers tell me, well, Ben, lawyers, you can't sue if you don't have standing. All right, you have to have standing. That's what lawyers always tell me. If you don't have standing, you can't sue. So you can't sue. And there's nobody was injured by the TIF program, which I find outrageous. You know, I mean, like the poor kids of Chicago go to public school. They'd be number one, be people who are injured by a program that diverts hundreds of millions of dollars every year from the public schools. But somehow or other, they don't count. But somehow, some way, you must be a very good lawyer, Anil, that you found standing for Amisha's group to sue and a reason to sue and a legal argument to be made on behalf of suing to overturn the, what is it, $2.3 billion? Do I have that correct?
2.6. But that's both projects,
My bad.
Lincoln Yards and the 78. And our lawsuit is focused on Lincoln Yards at this moment, which is...
I apologize. 1.4
only 1.4 billion.
Only 1.4
right.
billion.
That's it.
So talk about the standing. Talk about the legal issues at play here.
Sure. So starting out with standing, both the Grassroots Collaborative and the other co-plaintiff, Raise Your Hand, have been advocating for TIF reform for more than a decade now. And there's a well-accepted principle under the law that organizations can have standing because of direct injuries to those organizations through two things. One, a frustration of their mission and the diversion of their resources to address illegal activity. Mm-hmm. And both Grassroots Collaborative and Raise Your Hand certainly fit that bill in terms of the work they are doing, the resources they are expending to try to address problems with TIF, and the consideration of the other ways in which they could expend those resources if not for the improper and what we allege is the illegal way that the city administers the TIF program. Yeah. And just to give you an overview of the complaint. So the complaint seeks to challenge both the creation of the Lincoln Yards, the Cortland Chicago River TIF district, mm-hmm. Alleging that the approval by city council of the district and the redevelopment plan violated the state statute, in that district does not qualify under the state requirements of blight, and that the district doesn't qualify under the state requirements of not being able to see or project development but for that TIF district. Mm-hmm. So those are two claims under state law. We also have a claim under the Illinois Civil Rights Act, and as Amisha referenced, and as Grassroots and Raise Your Hand have shown for years, the effect of Chicago administering this program in a way that continues to approve districts that don't really qualify under the intent of the state statute results in diversion, siphoning off of resources from certain communities and funneling those in to specific communities. And what we see and what the data supports is that the highest performing TIF districts, those that create the most tax increment, create the most revenue, and where funds go back into those districts are predominantly in whiter, wealthier areas. And the districts that are not thriving are those in communities of color. Mm-hmm. So what in effect is happening is a shifting of the tax burden, and those communities are not receiving the benefit of having to foot that bill.
I would categorize that under the legal doctrine of duh, because absolutely the program is so freaking
You are a lawyer, aren't you?
I mean, the program is so flawed. It's like when the light went on, how many years ago? I forget when it was. The light went on for me, Neil and Amisha, when I realized that if you have a program that rewards gentrifying neighborhoods by allowing them to keep in slush funds, in bank accounts, the increased property taxes that they're generating as they gentrify. If you allow gentrifying neighborhoods to use that program, which is intended for poor programs, then gentrifying neighborhoods automatically have an advantage.
That's right.
So I'm so glad that you finally filed this lawsuit. Not blaming you for taking so long, Anil, all right? But Amisha, that leads me to ask you this. Why now as opposed to 10 years ago? What changed that finally you said, we got to file a suit? What changed?
Well, I mean, Grassroots Collaborative has been working to take on the abusive TIF program for a decade. And, I think through the years it was, I think we had struggles of like internally of like, well, is our goal ultimately to end the TIF program or reform it, right? And we've had a back and forth around that. And it's sort of been an evolution of tactics. So from 10 years ago, taking on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which at that point had gotten $15 million to rehab their bathrooms, which, my favorite action maybe ever still involves a golden toilet that we tried to deliver to Mayor Emanuel. And apparently there's like laws, you can't give gifts worth a certain amount, and he wouldn't take it. But so doing direct actions, creative actions, really lifting up how ridiculous the program was and what a misuse of our funds, and winning some degree of success. So getting $15 million back from CME, forcing Mayor Emanuel to do an executive order declaring a TIF surplus. He always liked to have his idea, make these all seem like they were his ideas, never community's ideas. So we didn't win the legislation we were trying to move. But then he basically made an executive order, paralleling what we were calling for. Well, the kind of uptick of developments and the sheer amount of money really pushed us to like look at, we need a different strategy. And I think it was the same time like the lawyers were also like watching this and being like, this doesn't make sense. There was a moment here so outrageous. Even though, to me, $15 million to Chicago Mercantile Exchange was outrageous enough. But when you're talking about $1.3 billion going to one of the whitest, wealthiest neighborhoods in Chicago, it's just, and then you have the 78. And then we just have this clarity about the scale of mega developments that will keep coming, that this will be a continual strategy that the city will use to use more and more of their dollars to wealthy developers, to parts of the city that don't need that resource. It really clicked for us. It's like, well, let's try something different. And the lawyers committee reached out. If we had long discussions like, does this, do we do this? What does it mean to do this? We've never filed a lawsuit before against the city of Chicago. So, but it really made sense. It was the right moment. It was the right time. And, and we're really hopeful that Mayor Lightfoot will not use city resources to fight us, but instead we'll actually see the opportunity of our work and our action and our organizing to really like be the outside push to make some massive changes to the way that TIFs are used.
Now we'll get into Mayor Lightfoot's role in all this. I'd like to also point out, if any of our listeners out there aren't, as motivated by the issues of racial injustice that this lawsuit gets at, I would like to remind each and every one of you that you're paying tax dollars. I always thought there was a property tax dollar lawsuit on behalf of property taxpayers, Anil, on this, because we pay more in taxes because that land is now tax exempt to the taxing bodies for new taxes. We pay more. Do you live in the city of Chicago?
I live in Oak Park.
Okay, you got TIFs in Oak Park. You're paying more. Dr. D over there on the board, he lives in Oak Park. He lives in Chicago. Leah over there, she lives in Chicago. They are paying more in taxes for this deal. All my listeners out there in the 41st Ward, you're paying more in taxes because of this deal. So I always thought there should be a taxpayer lawsuit because they don't tell you on your tax bill that you're paying more in taxes. Isn't that unconstitutional somehow or other? Isn't that like violating taxation without representation by concealing that information from us?
That's a really good point. And that's certainly one of the reforms that I know Grassroots has been pushing for and other groups have been pushing for, is just the basic transparency in terms of how the system works. Mm-hmm. The ability to look on your tax bill and to be able to identify what you are paying in terms of an adjusted rate, an increased rate, to make up for those frozen property tax values in TIF districts that aren't adding to the general tax base. Yeah. So certainly that's a reform that will be sought through the list of accountability and transparency measures.
All right, now let me ask this. So we go back to the issue of Lori Lightfoot, and I guess this is for you, Amisha. In the last administration, I've already forgot his name. Oh yeah, Mayor Rahm. When he came into office, there was a very unpopular parking meter deal that had been passed by the city council under Mayor Daley, and there was a lawsuit filed by Clinton Kursloff was the lawyer who filed the lawsuit. Mayor Rahm had a decision to make. He could either join that lawsuit and give sort of ammunition and support to the fight against the parking meter deal in the hopes that they may renegotiate it, or he could do whatever he could to undermine the lawsuit and benefit the parking meter deal owners. Guess which side he stood with. He underdid the lawsuit, got the council to reaffirm the parking meter deal, and we're still getting screwed there. What's your sense of what Lori Lightfoot's going to do in regards to your lawsuit?
I don't think we know yet. I think it's still early, so I don't think we have clarity yet. But I do think, Lightfoot has made a number of significant departures from Rahm on a very, on a set of issues, not specifically on TIFs yet, but on even just her pick for the board president. We go from the ComEd CEO to actually a long time, sort of advocate for education justice, and Miguel del Valle. So, I don't think we know yet, but there are some interesting, I think interesting moves that Lightfoot has made to really show that there is a different moment. She's, has a lawyer that used to work with Anil, who is I don't know the title, but the head of a new position and the head of equity for the city of Chicago, and Candace Moore, which that, again, when we're talking about racial discrimination in this TIF program, these are good signs. But we'll have to see. And I think we'll see that soon in the next coming months about, what the administration, how they're going to react to the suit.
All right. And Anil, I was saying that if I were the judge, I would, of course, say you have standing to file. And I agree with absolutely your right to file this lawsuit. Of course, I'm not a judge. I'm not going to be the judge that has to deal with your lawsuit. Has there been pushback since you filed your lawsuit? Have there been challenges to have your lawsuit thrown out? What's the status?
Yeah, we have not yet received a response from the city. We'll get that in a few weeks. So we don't have an official position that the city has taken. But, I would just reiterate a few things that Amisha has mentioned. We are hopeful that Mayor Lightfoot will take a fresh look at this and will consider how to approach this differently than the previous administration. So we're certainly hopeful. And, as Amisha mentioned, there are new positions that are being filled with folks that can bring new perspectives. She mentioned Candace Moore, who's going to serve as the new chief equity officer in a new office that's been created. We think that's a really good sign. I mean, that's an office that will begin to put a racial justice lens on a lot of different processes and manners of administration for many different programs, whether it's school closings, whether it's how TIF is used and the effects it has. So a number of things that can really benefit from that kind of perspective, where we have systems operating in a way that continue to produce these disparities based on race, that continue to push out certain populations in the city, that continue to grow wealth inequality. So we're excited about the potential there, and we certainly hope there's a positive response.
Wait, so I understand that you've sued the city, correct? I got that right? Have you sued the developers, or is it just the city?
No, the city is the only defendant.
Gotcha. The city's the only defendant, and right now, think about this. The people that you ultimately are suing have left. They're no longer in charge. Not literally suing them by name, but they're the policymakers who are representing the city. So I'm thinking of Rahm Emanuel, who championed the TIF. He's gone. David Riefman, who is the head of the planning department, he championed the TIF. He's gone. All right, there's that kid alderman from the 2nd Ward, Brian Hopkins. He's still there. But so if they're not around, like, who's responding? Who literally responds to your lawsuit? Like, excuse my utter ignorance, but the law, I like to pretend I'm a lawyer, but doesn't someone have to, like, literally respond to a lawsuit once they've been sued?
Yeah, that's right. It'll be the legal department.
But nobody has responded as of yet.
That's right. Yeah, their deadline hasn't occurred yet. So they're not delaying. They simply, there's a time set.
So if they, my imagination is running wild here. Please excuse me. Again, I'm no lawyer. If we, again, all the people, the culprits who thought this was a good idea have mercifully left the scene, with the exception of that one alderman. If the new people in charge decide that you're absolutely correct, that this is a foolish, frivolous, racist tiff, and they file a brief agreeing with you, what's the practical impact on that tiff?
I'll let you take that.
Yeah. So, we'd love a call from Mayor Lightfoot or the law department, essentially along those lines. And if the position of the administration has now changed, and there was an effort to void that city ordinance that created that district, then the plaintiffs in the case, Grassroots Collaborative and Raise Your Hand, would decide if that has sufficiently addressed the concerns raised in the complaint, and that may be one way it resolves. We don't know, but that's certainly, on the table. That could happen. We would welcome an opportunity to.
So could you
discuss that
argue,
with the
again, I'm no lawyer, could you argue that even though the city has effectively signed a contract with Sterling Bay, the developer, that if the contract violates the Constitution, it's racially discriminatory, that it can be voided?
The lawsuit is really trying to void the ordinance and the approval of the redevelopment plan. So from a technical standpoint, the development could go on with private funding. What we're seeking is to enjoin any use of public TIF funds to support that development.
Heck yeah, that development could have gone on without private. They should have funded it themselves from the get-go. We wouldn't even be.
That is
Amisha
the
and I
core
would
of the
be here.
argument. That's
Good
exactly, a key part of the argument.
Wait, hold on. I hear something. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Oh, that's Sterling Bay crying because you may take away their, how much was it? $1.3 billion? All right. Now, you've not sued them by name. They're not part of this suit. It's the city of Chicago. I mean, are they just going to sit there and let you snatch $1.3 billion from their paws?
Probably not, but we'll see, right? I mean, I think again, the Grassroots Collaborative's belief is, not to support the creation of a second luxury downtown neighborhood in the city of Chicago, but this lawsuit is specifically on the question of public dollars subsidizing that said development. So what they do with it and how they respond, we will see, right? But I think our point very much is that they do not need these dollars, and they should not get these dollars because they are not blighted. They are not struggling. They do not meet the requirements of the but-for part of the TIF statute.
Mm-hmm. And nobody, just so I get this straight, nobody has responded. No lawyer has responded one way or another to your lawsuit.
That's right.
Officially responded, so it's just sitting there in a court. Wow, they're taking their time. Amisha Patel is in the studio, and we'll be right back after this. Hey! Playing now at Steppenwolf Theater, the world premiere of Ms. Black for President. It's inspired by the true, that's true as in it really happened, TRUE story of Joan Jett Black, America's first drag queen presidential candidate. You know who created it, D?
No.
It was created by Tony nominee Tina Landau.
Oh.
And you know who else created it?
No.
Oscar winner Terrell Alvin McCraney. You know him, Moonlight.
Oh, yeah.
For tickets, visit steppenwolf.org. That's Steppenwolf, like the rock group from the 60s.
Hang tight, millennials. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. All right, now comes the portion of the program where you hear about Ben Joravsky's love for candles. My goodness, he loves candles. Sad news. After 5 years in Andersonville, Murray & White have made the difficult decision to close their doors. But everything in that store is on sale. Notable sale items as well. Now, you're going to have to go to Murray & White to see if they have any available here. But Voluspa and Nest Fragrance brand candles are 20% off. Ben, how many candles were there when you last went?
There were a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't take them all, Candle Man. All right. So Voluspa and Nest Fragrance brand candles, 20% off. These lines can rarely be found on sale. So while 20% isn't the largest discount, lovers lovers of both of these popular candle lines, like Ben, have been buying them up. Leave some for some others, Ben, please. All rugs are 30% off in store and new orders through June 1st. All floor sample furniture is 30 to 50% off. Antique furniture pieces, 40 to 50% off. Pillows, 40% off. Picture frames, 40% off. And jewelry, 40 to 50% off. Mirrors and wall art are 30 to 50% off. You don't have to worry about any of these items, by the way. It's just the candles that Ben just buys up.
Candles.
Oh, my goodness. Tell me more about it. Mirrors and wall art, 30 to 50% off. Home decor and accessories and more, 20 to 60% off. Once again, after 5 years in Andersonville, Murray and White have made the difficult decision to close their doors. But right now, everything is on sale. Go see him, Murray and White in Andersonville. Ben, please save some candles for the rest of the patrons.
Okay, will do. I'll try.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home, Candleman.
Okay, that's super cool. Music means we're almost done with the show. Not done yet. But I just want to say, Neil Shablani, the guy is not only a brilliant lawyer who's come up with this TIF lawsuit that may strike a blow to this dastardly program, he also plays a mean piano. That's him on the piano right there. Man, he's good. These lawyers, they got so many hidden talents. Who knew? Anyway, all right, Amisha Patel's in the studio. You know, I'm not going to let her leave without asking her about the issues of the day. I'm not going to let Chicago's greatest grassroots organizer leave without asking her about, elected school board. All right, now this is my theory, my thought. I sort of trotted this out at the break. It's this. There's a principle for an elected school board that people have been advocating for a long time in the city of Chicago, at least for the last 8 years or so. And Lori Lightfoot, the newly elected mayor, is against that principle, or at least she doesn't like the current bill, and she's stalling, and it probably won't pass this year as a result. On the other hand, she has nominated, I guess, Miguel del Valle, who is a liberal state senator for many years and ran for mayor as a reformer, and he's one of my favorite politicians down through the years. So does the principle of an elected school board go out the window if the mayor appoints a school board chieftain that you like? What's your thoughts on that?
Not at all. I think, we pushed, and many people pushed, to make sure we were clearly going to have a new appointed board until we had the elected board, right? So the move to have Miguel del Valle as the board president, I think, does signal a really sharp shift from their predecessor. Again, we talked earlier about that, of just having a corporate CEO as the head of that. The head of the school system has been a real problem. And so having Miguel del Valle there is significant. We'll see what other board members she nominates to fill out the school board. And so, because there are key decisions that board needs to be making now. And Del Valle himself has said, I'm only doing this until there is an elected representative school board. So I think that is still the thing that we need to move towards, which is that people actually having direct accountability to who is running the school system and making huge decisions that impact everyone's lives, really, because what happens with the schools affects the whole neighborhood and community. So that work will continue to move forward. And I would really hope that Lightfoot would really listen and follow the lead of community residents, parents, teachers who've been organizing on this issue for years. And there's a reason why they're calling for a 21-seated member board. There's a lot of thinking and that has gone into the proposal that is, that has been moved out of the House, but is stalled in the Senate because Lightfoot doesn't want it to move. So this is yes, she's moving in a different direction in a lot of ways so far. And there are places and I think in education where it really is about listening and following the lead of people who've been on the ground fighting for these things for years in their community, and listening to what parents and teachers have been working on. Because she doesn't know everything. There's no way, right, that anyone can know anything. And she certainly doesn't have all the answers. And I think this is an important place for her to really follow and not just, decide how she wants it to go.
Well, one thing that would be changing in the short term if Miguel Devay is the president of the school board, and this relates to your lawsuit, follow me on this, it's my position has always been that the taxing bodies are injured by TIFs because money is diverted from them. The schools would be at the top of the list because most of the money gets diverted from the schools. So if they allow public dollars, follow me, Amisha, what I'm about to say, if they allow the city of Chicago rules against your lawsuit and allows the county court, I should say, a judge rules against your lawsuit and allows money to be diverted from the public schools to construct the Lincoln Yards development, effectively they'll be forcing the Board of Education to find some way of educating the people who live, the kids who live in that community, in that Lincoln Yards, but they will not be providing them the money to do so. So essentially, they're going to be asking the Board of Education to provide a service that they're losing money on the deal, but they'll be having to provide a service. Same thing for the police department, who has to police the project, and the fire department. So it would be encouraging to know what Miguel Devay's thoughts on this are. Maybe he would join your lawsuit.
We would welcome Miguel Devay to join our lawsuit. I think I can safely say it's true. The irony of how TIFs have worked is that the sister agencies are deeply affected by every time a TIF project goes forward that takes money away from where it should be going. Because everyone's taxes go up, but it's also that there is less money. And the city what Rahm Emanuel said for years was, no, but we are spending the TIF dollars on schools. But again, and we still cite a lot of the work you've done, Ben, that like the map, I think, of like where TIF dollars are being spent in the city, and the fact that they are concentrated in downtown and near downtown communities. All of this means that there are instead of reducing inequalities, it is actually expanding inequality and making it worse.
All right. Well, we can hope Miguel Devay joins the lawsuit. That would be pretty funny. All right. Now, other events under Mayor Lori Lightfoot today. The city council had a meeting, and they, by voice vote, I'd love this, voice vote. They were too chicken to take a roll call, approved her committee structure, all the chairs of her committee. So, for instance, Scotty Wagasback is now the chairman of the finance. Ed Burke is nothing, but an alderman. Not that they are nothing, but whatever. So your general thoughts on what she's doing with the city council?
Well, speaking of Wagasback and finance and connecting back to the lawsuit, I was really disappointed to see that she took TIF, oversight over TIF programs out of finance and into economic development, when you actually have now finally the alderman who has been at the forefront of fighting for TIF reform and TIF accountability, and the opportunity to make some real, to have a big ally in leadership to push forward the kinds of changes we need to see. And that just got moved away from him and moved to, I think, Villegas.
Yes,
and
Gilbert Villegas.
So that's, I don't get that. And you can, whatever about, well, that's more appropriate for economic development. It doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like it's definitely a step backwards to have done that. But, I think there are some, we actually just sent out an email to all of our supporters asking people to contact all 17 chairs of the new 17 chairs of the committees, asking them to sign on to an ethics pledge that would say that they will not take dollars from people who are, contributions from folks who would have a conflict of interest with their committee. So, AKA Danny Solis, or other Ed Burke, or a number of other aldermen who have used their positions to actually fundraise and profit for themselves. We have asked, part of it is asking them to sign on and commit to racial equity in all the decisions that they make in their committees. So we have a list of things that we're trying to move out to say, okay, so here's the committees. I don't, some of them are, I think I'm excited about. Some I'm like, why are you the head of that committee?
Yeah.
But overall, we want, okay, well, commit to the set of, if you're going to do that job, then commit to the set of basic principles and agreements about how, that you will function in the interest of communities that live in the entire city. Because if you're a committee chair, you're not just responsible to the folks in your neighborhood. You have a citywide responsibility. You should have an open door to residents from across the city to engage with you about those committee issues. So we'll see what happens. We're moving that out to try to get traction and hope that committee chairs will agree to signing on to these principles.
All right, they seem pretty straightforward, but only in the city of Chicago would there be resistance. What else you got on your agenda, Amisha?
Well, I think connected on the city council, there's a set of legislation that is going to move in the next couple of months. Grassroots Collaborative is leading one of them, which is $15 by 2021. Our campaign 4 years ago was to win $15 in Chicago, and Rahm moved from 11 to 13, but not to. So we're here to finish that job and to get to 15 in 2 years, because Pritzker, the statewide minimum wage goes up to $15 in 2025. Doesn't make sense for Chicago residents to not have a raise for all of those years, and clearly, of course, higher cost of living. So we're excited about, look forward to people, to passing that with strong majorities. Affordable housing bills like Coalition for the Homeless pushing forward to make sure that there's key funding for homelessness from folks who buy luxury houses. Again, feels like it's a no-brainer. There's a range of different pieces that are really exciting. TIF surplus, again, we shouldn't just have an executive order. We need legislation that actually reforms the TIF, that makes very clear where TIF dollars should go so they don't pool into giant slush funds. So it's exciting. I think we're excited about the new council. We had many incumbent aldermen before the new aldermen who weren't even in office yet, who did civil disobedience with us the day that the Lincoln Yards vote happened. We're really excited about legislating with a crew of aldermen who come from communities and neighborhoods and campaigns. So that's all happening at the city level. And then we had this big win at the state level, a campaign that Grassroots Collaborative and many others have been working on for a decade, which is finally getting a constitutional amendment question on our ballot in November 2020, which basically says, do you think that rich people should pay more on a state income tax and lower income people should pay less? And this, we are still waiting on the rate structures, but this will raise, over $3 billion of money that from the wealthiest folks in the state to pay their fair share, like almost every other state in this country already does, like we already do for our federal taxes, and is about stabilizing our cities and states, but also having revenue to pay for the things that we all need, and to repair the years of damage under the Ron administration. But frankly, even Quinn and governors before who've been steadily cutting education, healthcare, human services, and it's a moment where we can finally start to actually rebuild and make everything better make things better for so many people.
Just listening to you run down these things, I'm thinking I've been on the losing side of pretty much every initiative, going back to the day when Harold Washington left, when he died, and it's just for the first time in my adult lifetime, it seems as though lefties, or whatever we're called these days, are getting some victories. I got to give a shout out to Pritzker. I did not vote for him in the primary, JB, but I voted for him in the general, and the guy has delivered on that fair tax. He forced Madigan to go along with it as well. The game they played. Amisha is always somehow or other he could never get it past Madigan because he was looking out for his caucus members. He didn't want them to vote on that, but Pritzker trumped them, and we have it on the ballot. So I have to give a little shout out to Pritzker on that one.
After years of neglect, Illinois is finally getting its mojo back, and we're open for business.
All right, calm down, JB. I don't go that far,
Take
but
a chill pill, man.
Anyway, so are you encouraged as well? Or it's hard to say encouraged when you're like a progressive or whatever we are. But are you feeling a little more encouraged these days?
I think it's a really exciting moment in Chicago and in the state where, again, the campaigns that many of us have been working on for decades before I came, started doing this work, that, we're starting to see, again, it's a long arc, and we're starting to see some good shifts. There's so much more ahead of us, and there's so much more to do. But it is very encouraging to finally have some of the stuff that has felt like basic, of course, no-brainers. But even, again, I remember when we first started talking about $15, people were like, that's too much. What are you talking about? There was a Sun-Times journalist, actually, who was scoffed at me, was like, there's no way, you're just, pie in the sky. And then he later apologized because it was actually happening. And I mean, I just think, again, it's this like we need big, bold ideas and we need to be audacious. That is a role of community organizers. And we are seeing, and, of course, elections matter and we see the difference. But those elections and those people are coming off of years and years of organizing of, folks who don't have a lot of resources, but have been like in motion in the streets fighting for the things that they know that people need, and we are here today because of that legacy of organizing in the city.
And I have to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Madeline Talbot. She's too shy to give a shout out to herself. She was the one who created the Fight for 15. Nobody gives her any credit. Madeline, you're my girl. She fought for it, and it's amazing that it's now taken on the momentum that it has. Mayor Lightfoot probably won't resist it like what Mayor Rahm did, all the games he played.
Yeah, Madeline's amazing. Madeline's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, her work really it just sparked such a movement across the country. And it's, she's our own, one of the founders of the collaborative. Like, she's incredible. And yeah, we're excited. Lightfoot yesterday recommitted her support at $15 by 2021. The question will be the details. We're fighting to get as many people in as possible. So we want to get rid of the tipped wage so that tipped workers eventually have the same minimum wage as everyone else. Right now, a lot of people don't know, right? Tipped workers get paid much less. We want to include young people. There's a youth wage. So even young people get paid less for their work than adults do. Sister agencies right now. So if you're a CP, if you're with the Chicago Park District, the minimum wage win that we won in Chicago doesn't actually apply to you. So there's a bunch of changes we're trying to make with this legislation to bring as many people in as possible so that everyone has the ability to have, a better shot at making the money that they need to take care of their families. So I think that's going to be the fight. We're going to see a $15 minimum wage in 2021, and our fight is to make sure as many people are in as possible.
All right, very good, Amisha Patel. That's good news. Grassroots Collaborative, thanks for coming on. Anil Shablani from the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. I want you to do your yoga and eat lots of healthy food because you're in for a big fight with that TIF lawsuit. Although maybe not. Mayor Lightfoot may say, hey, I agree with Anil, and man, I don't know what I would do then. I'd probably pass out. But thanks for coming on and explaining things. Also want to thank Monroe Anderson and Atiba Buchanan, wherever they are, for doing a great job. Leah, our marvelous editor, does a wonderful job as all every day. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend behind the board, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. They call him White Lightning. Oh, yeah.
You're the only one that calls me that.
Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. We are having a caption contest. Mayor Rahm, J.B. Pritzker caption contest. Head over to the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page and leave us your captions at Benny J Show. BENNY, the letter J Show, JORA, V as in victory, SKY. We'll be reading more of your captions tomorrow. And at the end of tomorrow's program, we will announce our 3 winners. And those winners will go see Cirque du Soleil Volta at Soldier Field.